I said, there's a speed camera just north of Blackrock Tower. Any other speed camera I'll pay for. Fucking get in there, right? So I said, don't try and get to the ground. Park over at Anderson's. I'll send the emergency umpire over, Damien Sully. He'll meet you at the bottom. Just bring my fucking kit and hurry up. And I just hear him say to Michelle, go, I've got to go. I remember when I first started, my first fitness test was a 10K time trial.
Oh, my God.
Mate, people would leave.
What?
On more than one occasion, people left in an ambulance. And I didn't know it was him, but he was calling out my name. He says, Razor, Razor. And I turn around and he goes, I know your name. And this guy had been bumping into me. Right? He goes, who's this fuckwit? It was so good.
We finally strapped him down, Dos, and we were just talking to our next guest before that he wanted to wait before coming on this show because we thought we might have got him 2 or 3 years ago. There was rumblings, but he's waited till we've upgraded everything. We've got a little bit of credibility, but we've got the personality of the AFL. Ladies and gentlemen, Razor Chamberlain, welcome.
Good morning, lads. It's funny how we can have be watching the same channel and be viewing two completely different things. Quite frankly, the reason for the delay is that I was waiting for you to move within 1 million miles of where I was based.
Yes.
So now that you're across the street, it was pretty hard to say no.
100%. We've had a lovely little chat off air about a couple of things, and we're talking about things that are awkward that shouldn't be awkward, which we'll be talking about in our next episode. But one thing that you weren't expecting to go with this morning was there was a conversation about fake tan.
Yeah, well, we were just sharing sort of, family stories and what have you, and I was just giving an update as to, how my daughter was going, and she started to be involved in competitive cheer, and we've got a competition next week, Winterfest.
It's exciting.
And there's a lot involved, and as an older male from a 70s child,
yep.
The cheer scene is not one that I'm particularly familiar with, so I'm learning a lot. And part of it was the tanning process, which is an intense process, one that I've never had to delve into. And it was revealed that this is a space that you're really, really familiar with.
Yeah,
well versed.
Short answer is yes. So quite well versed in this area. 5 years, and
5 years clean.
Yeah,
5 years quite clean, moisturised, really. So,
well, to be fair, like there's a lot of.
I'm whiter than him when I'm not tan. By the way,
no,
so.
And I'm pasty. Yeah.
You're very.
I know.
Almost done well.
I'm they call me Casper. Yeah.
But the alternative in relation to health and skin health and sun and all of that. Hey, there's a lot to it. I mean, I know that's not why you're there.
No, but I do say that people question there's nothing healthy about a tan. Do you remember that ad?
Yes.
Yeah. So would you rather out of the bottle and safe, or would you rather the harsh sun conditions?
Listen, it's a fair point. And I don't know how long we want to delve into the tan.
Probably not too much longer.
I just don't know where you find the time, to be fair.
Yeah. It's a good wind down, Ray. Yeah.
Where do we go with this interview? There's so many different roads we could go down.
Well, you actually also made a comment off air that you might have been retiring our good friend over here prematurely. So you said he was probably closer to the end than the start. How did you feel about that comment, Ray?
I can't argue with it.
Well, every time I talk to him, he's always talking about his back, the discs in his back. He's got the back issues, don't you?
I do. There's a list. I think Brad Haddon, who I'm a massive fan of,
the cricketer.
Yeah, former cricketer. Now he's a media guy and coaches, but I would prefer to refer to him as an entertainer, to be fair. Like, I love the way that he played the game. He always, even as a teenager, he played to win it then. Like, don't worry about, waiting to the 47th over. If they're up in the ring, hit it long, hit it straight, win the game now. And so I just love the way he approached sport in that sense. But and combative, he didn't like losing, so I love that about him too. But I remember him saying, he was talking about getting scans, and he goes, you never get you get a scan, you never get ruled in. You don't ever get ruled out when you get a scan. So if you go and scan any person of my age who's done anything physical for a period of time, so say umpiring, you've been running or bouncing the ball, it'll light up like a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're impeded. So then all of a sudden something pops up, you're like, what's that? You go and get it scanned, it's a bone spur. Well, you've had that for 15 years. but for some reason now it's just it's becoming an issue. So yeah, the back, but no, well, 21 years of umpiring, you are closer to the end than the start, right? Like that's a mathematical fact. You don't do it till you're 70.
I probably worded it in the incorrect manner.
So wait, did you say?
I don't want to say insensitive, but if you want to, that's entirely up to yourself.
So you just said 21 years. So that means 2003, right? Was your first AFL?
Well, I'm including this year as a season. So 2024 is when I debuted. Sorry, 2004.
2004. So I want to know then, Ray, when did this whole Razor persona begin? And tell us about the origins of that. So if you started umpiring 2004 in the AFL, when did, I presume BT was the one that picked up on that and really started running with it and brought it probably to all of our attention watching. When did it all start? What year? How far in?
Yeah, well, that's when it became a public thing in footy around sort of that 2006-07.
Okay.
So I did a couple of games at the end of the 2004 season in my debut year, you know, nobody versus nobody in Tasmania or something like that. So there was nothing then. And then by about 2 years in, you know, Brian was doing his thing in terms of his media, and he was on a Comet and flying, and he would have personalities as part of his genre. I think he calls Dion Preston the human meatball, and, you know, that type of stuff. So I was just a part of that. That's all that was. And so really it was about Brian, to be fair.
Yeah.
And he was slaying and killing it. So I will timestamp how when I'm trying to go, where do I know this person from? You know, they'll oh, g'day, like your best mates. And you're like, shit, I don't know where I know you from.
Yeah.
And if they call me Chambo, it's pre-AFL.
Gotcha.
So I could have been a school teacher. I could have been from Canberra, where I grew up. Mm-hmm. If they call me Razor, then I know, okay, we know one another from once I started umpiring AFL football. And so that allows me to try and filter where do I know this person from. But the whole Razor thing, I had a problem with for a long period of time. I felt like people were referencing and being, particularly in the media, like a little condescending and patronising. Mm-hmm. And what didn't sit well with me was that I didn't have a right of reply. So you're being portrayed or cast as a certain thing, and maybe there's an element of that that's got some validity, to be fair, but it's not who you are, and that would really piss me off. Mm-hmm. But the problem wasn't them. Like, the problem was actually me and my inability to contextualise and understand and just deal with, to be fair. So that took a little bit of getting used to, but a story about Razor, I went to pick my daughter up. She was in like year 3, and I was after school. She didn't normally go to after school care, but my wife and I must have had stuff on, and so I ran down to pick her up. And this is when she still liked seeing me. So she'd come running across, gave me a hug, grabbed her bag, and there were some year 5, 6 boys, and they've sort of double take like that. And then the next day she came home from school, and she goes, "Oh, Dad, the year 6 boys were talking to me today." And I said, "Oh, how'd that go?" And she goes, no, it was cool. And they all wanted to know if Razor Ray was my dad. And I said, "Oh, and what did you say?" She said, "I don't even know what a Razor Ray is." I said, "Mate, same, right?" So it's weird. Yeah, it's weird.
That's gold. 04, right, the debut. This is a real, I don't know why this question came to my mind. You've worn a lot of different colours. Like, as an umpire, I'm trying to think of the different colours you've worn.
Yep.
What would have 04 been? Would it have been blue or?
We're still in white.
So this caused me more anxiety than bouncing the ball or getting free kicks right. If you pack the wrong coloured kit, like...
So it's not laid out for you?
No, mate.
No, I'm just thinking of the players, right? I thought, maybe the umpires get that too.
Mate, I tell you what we get. a steaming pile of nothing. So... You pack your own kit, wash your own kit, like all of that, and look, so you should really. But there's no laying it out. I remember my grand final year, I did a game. I had a game on the Friday night, and I had to sit the bench on the Sunday.
Is this 2019?
We'll go way back. So This is 2010.
Okay.
And Hawthorn played Essendon at the MCG, and it's the game where Buddy Franklin kicked those 2 goals and Cale Hooker's like chasing after him and whatever else, right? Anyway, that's what everyone else remembers it for. But of course, we've all got our own lens and context and attachments to certain periods in time. You know, where were you when, you know? So that night, I drove in. Friday night, I think the Melbourne Storm were playing across the road. Traffic is just fucked, right? It is nuts. And Shane McInerney, who was the former Games record holder, now cast into nothingness. He's no longer the number one guy, just in case you run into him. Let him know. He was doing game, like it might have been game 350, 400, something ridiculous. I walk into the sheds and Dean Margetts from Perth is there early, so he's flown over and he's got his kit laid out, and Shane's over here and he's got his kit laid out. And what I noticed was that the coloured kit that they had there, I hadn't packed. And I'm like, fuck. And just sheer panic, right? So my wife, we've just got a newborn. No, she's heavily pregnant. So just before Scarlett was born. And I can't ring her to drive in to the MCG on a Friday night and wrestle bullshit traffic and park at bottom of Anderson's Hill and run over the Yarra and no, right, it's not going to happen. So I ring my colleague and friend, Chris Donlan, and he's at dinner with Michelle, his wife, and I go, I've packed the wrong coloured kit. And he goes, what? I said, and I told him where it was in my house. It was out in the spare room. And I said, there's a speed camera just north of Black Rock Tower. Any other speed camera I'll pay for. Fucking get in there, right? So I said, don't try and get to the ground. Park over at Anderson's. I'll send the emergency umpire over, Damien Sully. He'll meet you at the bottom. Just bring my fucking kit and hurry up. And I just hear him say to Michelle, go, I've got to go. Right? So leaves his wife at dinner. And they brought the kit in. And I umpired that game. And that year, I umpired my first grand final. Now, had I not been able to resolve that issue and I had to borrow the emergency umpire's kit, they were that childish and infantile, that would have been it for me.
Really?
Fucking oath it would have. Yeah, like I'd have umpired the year out, but there's no way I'd have got picked for the grand final.
Wow.
They'll use that as something to not pick you.
You're not prepared. Like, really? And so
There's a nice kid of you in the red there.
So those guys, yeah, there you go. Look at that. So
Juddy?
red, green, we had yellow, we had white, we've had blue. So a whole raft of colours. My favourite's the blue, actually. The light blue is my favourite colour.
Yeah, that is a good
I
one.
actually quite like the original white with the stripes, but I know it's a bit vintage and every team has a white away kit these days. But I'm really excited to kind of dive into some of the myths about umpiring as we kind of go on. So one of them off the top, because I'm seeing a lot of people even making skits about this at the moment, is what happens at the end of a game when it's time to do Brownlow votes. And the myth being, how do stats play a part in that? Do you actually look at the phone and see who had the most touches? How does it work after a game when you need to vote for Brownlow?
Yeah, so when we arrive at the ground, we have to turn off our phones when we walk in, and they're locked away. So they're all put in this box, they get locked away and taken away. So that's part of the process. I've been there for 21 years. This has evolved.
Yep.
Okay? So it hasn't always been like this, to be fair. But of course, you've got a whole raft of stuff like to do with betting and all of that, integrity issues, etc. And it's actually to keep us safe. Yeah? So if you remove all those influences, it should make it more challenging for bad stuff to happen, yeah? So during the game, we will discuss at the end of each quarter and at halftime, etc., how we think things are going. But you've got to remember that, like here where I was joking before about a hot mic, you have to assume that it's always on.
Yeah.
So there's a dude or a chick in a van who's in the Fox Sports or the Channel 7 and they're... So someone can always hear you. And to assume that they can't is foolish, right?
Okay.
So we can't be talking about that, but we will...
Oh, about individual players?
Nah. So, we'll
Really?
write it down. Like we'll get a pen off the physios or whatever, and we'll jot things down so that we're not trying to remember 2 hours ago what took place. We've got sort of information throughout the entire game.
Okay.
And by the way, we've all got our own processes about how we come to what our views are.
Yeah.
So at the end of the game, come off, and there'll be some bits and bobs. Someone might be injured. There'll be some things that need to be addressed. But then we'll go off the field umpires only. We'll go off into a room and we're isolated, and we'll have the team sheets, and we just start. Generally, you start with a process of elimination. Who you go? No, they're not they're not in the conversation. And you generally whittle it away and get a bit of a short list, and then you start pros and cons. We ask lots of questions of each other. So who was the best big? Who had the best defensive role? Who shut down who? All of those things, rather than just who kicked 5 goals, whatever. So all of that dialogue takes place. But in the end, you have to get 4 umpires to agree on 3 votes only.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. That's it.
Yep.
Right? So, we often joke around, can you just put down on the bottom there, well done to, Nick. He had a great game, but we couldn't manage to get him in. You know what I mean? Like, because sometimes it's hard. So sometimes, it's quite quick, and then there are times where we're there for an hour.
Really?
And blueing about it.
Wow.
We take it seriously because we value it. Do we get them all right? No. We don't. Do you get everything right? No. You're 10. There'll be streaks.
Thanks, Ray.
Right? You don't nail it every week.
That's right. No, I don't.
Right?
You're spot on.
It's looking great today.
Thank
you don't get it, So but we do take it seriously. We do care about it, and we do value it.
Oh, I'm just interested. Like, I'm just wondered if you ever sitting there on Brownlow night and go, somebody either missed, like, the 3 and the 2 are the wrong way round. And you go, gee, we argued, and that could have changed the Brownlow.
Help me out, Zach Butters. Last year, I had a game where we were over there, and he was the best player on the ground.
Was this when the horny one?
Different one to that. He was not that one.
No.
He was the best player on the ground by a mile. Like, don't even start. And we didn't get him in the votes.
Wow.
And I look back at that and just go, fuck.
Is that because the other 3 umpires?
No. We cocked it up, right? So it's a we. I'm going to say it's a we thing. It's always all of us, right?
Yep.
You can say, oh, he said this. No. We're all signing off on it.
Yep.
It's all of us. So I can think of some absolute stinkers that I've been involved in. And go, how did you miss that? Well, because you're human. I remember Chris Scott missed Jeremy Cameron in the coaches' votes.
Yeah.
And he got asked about it. And he is as sharp as shit, right? Like, he's astute. Every time he's on something, I listen to him wanting to learn, right? And he goes, I'm embarrassed that I missed that. Yeah? Because, again, he takes it seriously.
Of course.
Well, that's Chris Scott. He's only got to worry about one team, really. You know what I mean? So, so
it's really interesting.
It happens. Errors happen. We all make them.
Of course.
It's a full-on. We don't get stats, but of course you're at the ground. So different grounds provide you with different information. So the MCG is good at getting clearances and all that. So that might be at half-time or whatever. And so you can, oh, Jesus, I wasn't aware of that, or I need to take more attention to that. So there's lots of stuff where you've got that extrinsic information, but we don't get given statistical information. And I think that's a good thing. Like
I do too. I really do, yeah.
Like, a good one that I can tell you about. Like, we got Connor Iden in. Geelong played GWS down there, not this year, last year. And we got Connor Iden in, I think, for 2 votes, right? And I was, like, adamant, and the boys were really good. They go, yeah, mate, he was unreal. And then you leave the ground and you go, well, you're playing back pocket, basically, right? He's a defensive player. And then the coaches' votes come out, like on the Monday. Yeah. And I always go, how did they see it versus what we did? And he was second best on the ground. I'm like, yes.
Yeah,
So that wouldn't have been a statistical. If all you had the stats and you're basing it off stats, he wouldn't have had 30 and kick 3.
Yep.
But he was definitely in the top 3 players on the ground. So we don't get stats, so that's a myth. It's hard.
This episode of the dos&d show with the great Razor Ray, if you don't mind, is brought to you by our friends at Fleet Plant Hire Solutions.
Obviously, Ray is an unbelievable umpire, isn't he, Dos?
The best. The very best.
Normally he makes the right call, would you say?
No
I'll
comment.
give you all a decision that you'll never get wrong, is if you use Fleet Plant Hire Solutions.
You'll never go wrong with those guys. With anything you need earth moving wise, they're the number one.
Visit www.fph.com.au. Get involved today.
You see in other sports, other codes around the world, like, especially I think of soccer, when players are... They're in the ref's face all the time. Like, they're always, if there's a foul or there's a decision made, or even after the game, you see a lot of the players go up to the refs and actually have conversations and thank them and shake their hand. Do you ever find that do players, they might not be doing it strategically, but do they try and build rapport with good players, try to build rapport with umpires so they're front of mind with you guys?
I don't think for 1 second players are trying to build rapport for the sake of, I might jag a Brownlow.
Accolades, yeah.
I don't think that for sure at all. I think as human beings, we've all got varying degrees to which we lean into and try and put energy towards establishing positive relationships in different spaces for a myriad of reasons, right? So it might be from business perspective. It might be to do with your neighbours and you're living in the same street, so you don't want it to be toxic. And if the dog gets out, you hope someone grabs it and throws them back over the fence. So I just think footy and footy teams and the AFL, they're just a microcosm of society more broadly.
Yeah.
And so you've got the whole gamut. You've got those who don't want to talk. I remember Fraser Gehrig as an example. And the other thing to keep in mind is who those people are during that environment is not necessarily a direct correlation to the persona of who they are when they're away from that combative environment. So, they might be fighting for their spot on a list or whatever else, and they know they're under the pump. That's a lot of pressure for those guys. And so if they snap at you and get the shits up because you might pay a horrible free kick or miss something, I'm not judging them as who they are as people by the way they act there. I remember Fraser Gehrig, he wouldn't say anything. He'd run along the boundary and all that sort of stuff behind the goals before the game, and he'd be grunting and carrying on, and he was big and scary. And I never met him as a person, and he's I think, a fairly reserved guy, but I don't know him well. But we used to train at the same gym. Similar weights. It's not. Jesus.
He has a bench press record still, I think.
Tin around the joint. But there were these guys in there, like this one day who I'd not seen before, and they're grunting and carrying on like proper, like just horrible etiquette. And I had headphones on, but I rarely have any music on, but I just put them on so no one annoys me and talks to me. And Fraser came up and he goes, and I took it off. He goes, I'll give you $1,000 for your headphones. Because you didn't want to listen to the crap that these guys are swinging around. Yeah. We had never spoken before that. Like, it was funny, right?
That's funny.
So who and what and how a person presents within the context of an AFL game, like you're not judging them within that environment as to how they are at St. Ali across the street, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We actually ran into, we were getting Subway one day down in Mornington, and the G-Train walked in, saw the line and went, ugh, and walked out.
Yeah, I think he said another word than that. But I want to know, take finals and grand finals aside for a second. Is there a game that stands out to you where you've been umpiring, where you've just been swept up in the actual game itself? Or is it like a tap you can turn off when you might be sitting at home watching versus actually being on the field and umpiring? Or can the emotion and the excitement, I'm not saying it influences how you perform, but I'm just saying in terms of you just feeling this energy around you and the excitement, and does anything stand out?
It's a good question. So when you put your fan hat on, so I love the NRL.
Yep.
And my in-laws have been involved in the NRL, so I passionately will follow that. You find yourself being a fan and a nuffy and abusing and cheering and all of the things. So as an umpire within the footballing environment, we always talk about we need to be the sane ones in the asylum, right?
Yeah,
so,
of course.
So that element, no, we don't. You don't get caught up in that. But I remember there are games that I can remember where you go, holy, it's on here.
Yeah.
I umpired the game where St Kilda and Geelong were undefeated.
Oh, yeah.
2009, like round 16 or something.
Big
like
game.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it was an unbelievable game. And I was young in my career then. And thankfully I was with two unbelievably good umpires in Brett Roseberry and Michael Vozzo, I think it was. Yeah.
You loved Brett Roseberry.
And I just remember going, holy shit, it is loud in here.
Yeah, because I'm a St Kilda fan, so I remember that vividly. But that was like a sellout.
Yeah.
And I think Bruce McAvaney has referenced it as the greatest game of football he's ever witnessed.
So I umpired in a drawn grand final, and there's some other games like that too that have been great, but that game was nuts. Yeah, it was incredible. It was so much fun. And then, you can be in games where, it's like 2 degrees and it's 80 points the difference. And you're like, shit, we've got 24 minutes to go here. This is blow the siren. End it. So there's all of that. But when you're doing your job well, it's done. And then all of a sudden you're at home.
Yeah. Yep.
You're immersed in it. And you're so focused and hyper-focused on what your role is that all of that other stuff is just irrelevant.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about today's day and age in terms of umpiring? I want to know about the person that's in your ear now, which I don't think is it the first year that they've had someone in your earpiece reassuring you? Like, I remember hearing in the media or something recently, there's someone going, great call, or is that people taking the mickey out of the actual role itself?
It's a massive beat up.
Okay.
And it's just, it's an interesting time, you know, and when people learn or hear of things for the first time, generally rather than a level of curiosity, they want to judge and respond and be first with this information, breaking news. So at the start of the year, so we have a match day coach at every ground. And their general responsibility, they'll provide some assessment and coaching throughout the week, post-game. They're there to make sure anything happening during the game that they can be there to assist or whatever. But essentially they're there to observe, that's it. And before the start of the season, we're allowed to provide like a bit of how we like to obtain feedback. So if I'm running through the first quarter and I've got 3 missed holding the balls in the same area because I'm just not responding and applying the law accurately, the game demands now fix that.
Yeah.
We're not having this for another hour and a half, Ray. Sharpen up. So the coach would, at quarter time, potentially say, hey, fend, clear prior opportunity, legally tackled, didn't kick or handball, any danger of paying a free, Ray? So there'll be that corrective stuff. But that they're allowed to chip in when at an appropriate time. So it's always in a stoppage in the game. So there's been a score, so you've got a minute and a half, whatever, or at quarter time, half time, 3/4 time. It's never in game.
So that's your coach talking to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing you'll hear on the broadcast is the 4 field umpires talking to one another.
Yeah.
And that's vitally important with what we do. It's fundamental with what we do on the ground. You don't see teammates running around not talking to each other.
Yeah.
Like, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. So to think that we would not collaborate either is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But you can say, like, and I do, I don't want to hear from you unless there's something that you need to correct. Well, I have to be open to that. I can't be, up you. That's not my right. But I don't need the cupping of the balls or the pats on the. I don't. It doesn't help me at all. At all. So I ask not to have that delivered to me.
Yeah.
But some guys, they might be a bit low on confidence, or they're young and a bit new, and so just some affirmation to say, hey, that's exactly what we've been talking about. Well done, and they go, okay, cool, and it just solidifies that. But it's not particularly prevalent. So that was a bit of a beat up, mate. To be fair,
I thought that. Yeah.
Yeah. Myth number 2 that I'd like to debunk with you.
Go on.
Fitness testing. Is this a thing? Do you have to hit requirements? If so, is it beep test, time trials? Can you give us some numbers?
So it's changed.
Okay.
So any given Sunday's our fitness test, right? However, to be fair, now that there are 4 field umpires on the ground, the physical element that relates to the task has been, not evaporated, but it's come right back. It's not what it was.
Because was there a time goal umpires had to hit credential, like time trials too? Or was that
I'm not involved in the sweet science of goal umpiring, but yes, they did have certain benchmarks, and it was more not so much about the athleticism. It was more about going, you need to be healthy. Like, you look at the brand, I think it's as much to do about this, right? Like, it's an elite level of sport. Present yourself in a healthy fashion.
Makes
so it was
sense.
more around that, right? But so with us, in my time, I remember when I first started, my first fitness test was a 10K time trial.
Oh, my God.
Mate, people would leave. On more than one occasion, people left in an ambulance.
Time trial, not a run, a time trial.
Is this round? Is this laps of an oval, or is this a nice
This
circuit
was
around
around
Melbourne?
Prinny Park. 3 laps. It was 3 and a bit laps around. Around the outside there. So so it was, and then, but you got to remember, this is like, again, 20 years ago, right? Things have progressed. So everything now is you do a 2K.
Yep.
And so that'll give you your benchmarking time.
What are you hitting that at, right?
Oh, I'm terrible.
Oh, what's your best? Give us your
Calendar.
best.
You can time it on a calendar. No, if I get anywhere, so the last time I did one, I think I did something, a tick over 7 minutes. So
Good.
not Paris. but we've got guys who will be like a minute faster.
Yeah, I bet,
like the
yeah.
young, who can proper run.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to like run well, in my view, since about 2011.
Okay.
So I had some surgery, and then I didn't think I'd be able to umpire AFL footy again, and so it was a bit. It didn't go great, and it was like, we're not sure this is going to sort of stand up to the rigours of what you got to do. And so then I had to spend 18 months in a gym rebuilding
Yeah, right.
the body, take the pressure off the knee and things like that. And I have to train completely different to the way I did. So, on a bike, in the pool, in the gym more than running. So I do the very least amount of running I can get away with to be appropriately conditioned now. So time trials aren't what I care about. It's actually being able to get out on the ground.
10Kers.
Yeah.
Players aren't doing that.
When I weighed 64 kilos then.
Yeah,
Wow.
okay.
Like ridiculous.
It's
So
tiny.
you knock that up
Yeah.
in half an hour. And
So just crazy, like how things evolve over time.
Yeah.
But so the physical demands are down. I think that's a good thing because let's be honest, no one's there going, oh wow, they're fit, those umpires. Like, can you guys, I don't know, get it right?
Yeah.
Like, that's what you want, right? So we're here to watch the players. If you guys can just get it right, that'd be fantastic, right? And we'll go on with our day. Yeah. So
For you, is it overwhelming, like the changes that happen each year? Like as an umpire, it's not like they're changing 50 rules every year. That's not. But there's lots of things changing all the time. There's things changing mid-season now. For you as an umpire, when you receive that from the bosses at the AFL, and do you think, well, you have no choice. You go, okay, yep. Do you go away and study that? Or do you get frustrated? Do you go to something else? How do you feel about the constant change?
what I've learned is the best mental practice in how to approach this stuff is just to understand that we are an on-field instrument of policy that is implemented from up the chain. So I know where I sit on the org chart. It's way down here.
Yeah.
And I'm really comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And as soon as I actually smacked myself in the face with that and said, hey, who do you think you are actually? That's not your job. Your job is here. Do that. Be competent at that. Then when those things come along, you don't have an emotive response, actually. It's like, okay, so we're doing that now. Great. And then your questions will go because you want to understand so that you can contextualise in-game because there's never two examples that are exactly the same. So you've got to understand what's the philosophy, why are we doing that, what are we trying to achieve by doing this, what are you asking of us, and then go and do it. And our best umpires, and I'm talking about Meredith, Stevics, Roseberries, these guys, it doesn't matter what you tell them to do. As long as you're clear and with it, they'll go and implement it and they'll be terrific at it. And just like in clubs, if they change the way they're going to move the ball or defend the ground, they'll have players who are unbelievable, Jerry on straight away, and they're great. And then they'll have guys on your list that can't get it right and they let it down. And it's the same in umpiring. We've got guys who are really great at it. And we've got guys it takes longer to get it better down. Yeah.
And Dos will tell you, I'm actually one of these people that you'll say, I defend umpires to the hill because I hate when people say we lost because of the umpires, blah, blah, blah. But what you often hear, especially from Victorians, is that when interstate, it's not about the free kick count, but it's where free kicks are given. And in the old days, it used to be always West Coast and Perth and the crowd influence. Have you seen, over your time, inexperienced umpires or umpires potentially faulted because of crowd influence or pressure, or do you think it's just total bullshit?
So I get triggered a little bit by some of this stuff because I'm a sports fan. Mm-hmm. Played cricket, loved it. I remember I got given out in a second grade semi-final. I was opening the batting. I smashed this ball into my pad, and I got fired. And I was so mad, right? And then a couple of years later, I was playing in a first grade grand final, and the ball came up, and I went to shoulder arms and let it go through, and it kissed my glove on the way through. And Brad Haddon was the opposition keeper, and even he didn't appeal. Mate, he can't help but appeal. He still walks down the street now. He's, right? Yeah. So, he'd appeal for everything. So no one heard a thing, right? But it hit my fucking glove. And I sort of went, just scratched my guard and thought, don't say anything. And no one appealed. So it wasn't, like, fucking beautiful. And that was my only decent innings ever.
Wow.
Top scored and we won. So what I do know about sport, having played and also been in the role of the official, is it swings and roundabouts. They've got 2 hours to sort their shit out, right? And there's so many inputs, but we get so hyper aware of things at the end. And I understand why, because it's the recency thing and it's right there at the death. But let's be honest, you're the sum of all your efforts over 2 hours.
Exactly.
And then more broadly, right, winners generally win and losers piss and moan about everyone else.
Of course.
They don't tend to own their own shit. And that's in life in general. So that's why I get triggered
Of course.
by it. But in terms of, it's not normally, the challenge when you're umpiring in a highly hostile, biased crowd is when there's a potentially like a hold or it might have flicked him high and it's the interstate side and it's deadly silent. So there's no response or extrinsic anything. And so you go, did he get him high? Do you know what I mean? Like, fuck, did he? I'm not sure. Play on.
Yeah.
Go back, check it, clipped him. So it can put some doubt in your mind. So there's
and then in the
all
reverse
sorts.
way of when the crowd go up.
Correct. You go, oh, is that high? Yeah. And
okay.
it might. So there's noise and there's extrinsic factors, and anyone who says that those things don't play a part in it, well, they're lying. But does it influence your decision making? No, not if you're any good at your job.
Yep.
Not at all. You're like, mate, if I see a free kick, I'm paying, and I don't give a shit what time it is, what the score is, what ground it's at. Were there pigeons on the fence? Like they're just not relevant, right? So it's a lot of mythical stuff tends to be involved within the shit talk that takes place on any given Monday when we're reflecting on the weekend. But there were statistical anomalies that have been involved, and I think there's an element of that you can't dismiss and just offhand say it doesn't exist. Yeah. That would be a lie. But yeah, no, I think, as I said, I think in general, those things are, again, over-indexed in terms of their reality.
Sure.
Yeah, it would be my view.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you consume football media as a fan? And if you do, how often?
Yeah, I try and stay well clear of it. Like mainly, so I love the game, and there are people who I really respect or enjoy. So sometimes I'm like, some of the Triple M stuff, right? They're not there to be super serious. Like they've got a certain genre, and it's funny, right?
Yeah.
Even if they're slagging me off, it's funny, and so I love a laugh, right? So that's cool. I enjoy listening to Lee Montagna, okay? Particularly with the way he sees the game and the bits of different pieces that he pulls out, because you learn about the game. And David King's similar, with that
I'm
type
a
of stuff.
King fan,
yeah. So I really enjoy listening to that. I'm a massive fan of Nathan Buckley, unashamedly, huge fan, have been forever. And I've never been a Collingwood fan or anything like that, but I just find his lens on things pretty balanced and thoughtful. Mm-hmm. And so I listen to that and then challenge my own thinking in relation to how I try and view the game. Am I worried about the general consensus stuff and who did Billy Bloggs from the Herald Sun give their best on ground to? No, it's not relevant to anything I do, and it's not part of my role. It doesn't serve me in any way. So, no, and I'm a dad. I've got a business that I'm trying to run. You're trying to get back on the ground. I'm injured. You're doing all that. I don't have the time for that. I've got a tan apparently. So there are other priorities.
Because it's just mind-boggling how much it consumes everyone else, right? Like me, even as a fan, sometimes I'm sure you sometimes. Everyone else who loves their footy, they just watch and listen to it all week. There's that. We laugh all the time at how many different footy shows there are, how many footy podcasts there are, how much analysis goes into it. But I asked why, if you consume it or not, because so much of it is always about what's happened that week, and a lot of it is umpire based. Because I don't know if it's because they have nothing else to talk about, but they pick and choose a moment in the game.
Yeah, it's low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Right. So, and the other thing is you won't get a lot of pushback or fight back because immediately, by nature of it, umpires aren't permitted to make comment. So you're not going to get them to turn around and threaten to flog you or something like that, right? you're not going to get smashed on social media for having a crack at an umpire, right? So again, it's a safe squeaky wheel to just lowbrow sling shit, and you're not going to get a lot of pushback, right? Yeah. So there's that cultural element that's a bit lazy and whatever else, and it would take some time, courage, and intellect to attack a player, right? If you're a media person, if you're going to go after a player, you'd want to have done your due diligence, because if you're out, they're all going to pile onto you.
That's true. Yeah.
They won't do that with umpires.
Yeah.
So it's a free hit. So it's a bit gutless, to be fair. And I don't say that to be inflammatory or to create argument or be abrasive, but I think it's probably true. Like, it's a pretty safe hit, right? So I sort of, and the other thing about it, in terms of consuming it, is it doesn't help me, and it wouldn't help any of my colleagues either. So I choose not to tip into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'll say this, right? So I hope this soundbite accompanies the other one, right?
Yeah.
Is this. Umpiring in the middle of the MCG, ball gets spilled out, player picks it up, tackled immediately, ball cries 50,000, back cries 50,000 more, right? And then I call play on. And 100,000 people come together as one to agree on one thing, and that is, I don't have a clue what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
I've said that before, but it's so true.
Yeah.
And then we talk about it all week. Footy shows, podcasts, cafes, bars, the Chambers up the road here, right? Whatever. And that's actually a really cool thing. And, it's my passion. I love footy. I'm in the role of an umpire, but I love the game. And it served me really well. It's part of my job. I get paid to do it. It helps me pay the bills, all of those things. So I don't bemoan the interest or the discussion at all. I just get a little bit, frustrated when we are judgmental prior to being curious, and we just emotively pile on, and we're ill-informed or blissfully ignorant. That's worse.
Yeah.
So you're lying.
Yeah. Yep.
Actually.
Yeah. Makes sense. We're going to, shortly, we're going to show a couple of our favourite interactions with you and plays, which I'm sure you've seen a million times, but it'd be rude not to have another look shortly. But I want you to answer this question without thinking too much, which is always...
Nailed it!
Yeah, which is always a little bit scary. Favourite player to umpire, or one of, you can name a few, in terms of banter you get back and forth. And second part to that question, in terms of just, again, I know you don't want to put your fan hat on, but just to witness them on the field right in front of you doing what they do, who's been some of those amazing players you've seen?
Yeah, Andrew Mackie, hilarious, one of the funniest guys, never nasty, but drive-bys that were just brilliant. Do you remember Ben Hudson?
Yeah.
The People's Beard?
Yep.
Yeah, mate, so funny. He would be just...
Witty.
He would give me shit all the time, right? But and good though. I reckon he's a great dude. Lance Franklin would have some funny ones. He didn't say a lot, buddy, but he had a couple of my absolute... There was a day, so Sydney were killing it. Carlton at that point weren't so great, and they were playing at the SCG. And Frankie would walk past sometimes and he'd go 6 today, or, something, whatever, just in earshot of his opponent or whatever. And that would be a bit funny. But this one day he goes past, and then I'm sort of scouring around, looking around before the start of the game. Is there any angst? And then I hear him, and I didn't know it was him, but he was calling out my name. He says, Razor, Razor. And I turn around and he goes, I know your name. And this guy had been bumping into him, right? He goes, who's this fuckwit? So good. And this, that is amazing, laugh, right? And then this kid's like, right, before he was just trying to do his job, and I wasn't. He was a young guy, and so that was
hilarious.
That was funny. So that stuff happens all the time. It's not nasty. It's nothing that's inappropriate or going into. You can't go
If it
their
is
territory.
nasty though, as an umpire, I'm not. If they don't direct it at you, but they're directing it at an opponent,
Mate, they can say what they want.
So you don't. You do. If something comes up that in this day and age that is maybe homophobic, sexist, racist, do you have to report it? Or you just...
So we have all of that. And by the way, there's very, very little of that.
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
But
I didn't know if you guys
I say that hand on heart. There's been some stuff this year we know, but generally speaking, that doesn't exist out in that environment.
Yep.
Can I ask then? Has that changed a lot, or has that always been that way?
So in my experience, and that's a couple of decades, but you got to understand it's in the 2000s.
Yeah.
So
Still not that long ago.
no,
Like,
that's what I'm saying, right? So there wasn't heaps.
Yeah.
You wouldn't hear heaps of that stuff, but it pulled up real quick, obviously, when we had rules come into play. So if any of that stuff, that's the nastier stuff, comes up, there's processes involved.
So you have to report to your boss. Or?
Yeah, it's all quite confidential,
Yeah.
and there's a process there to ensure that they're able to then go about mitigating all that. Then they come together and people they talk. It's about education. It's about changing behaviours, and it's about reconciliation actually between the parties before. And then what might come of that is it might be a suspension, or it might be a fine, or it might be that has to be part of that mediation. But first and foremost, generally speaking, the AFL go about that stuff offline.
Yeah, okay.
And they make sure that the parties grow, evolve, but then also heal.
Yep.
Yeah, which is super important.
Yep.
Yeah.
Backtracking, the other part of that question was who are three that you just love watching?
Okay, three players I love watching. Cool. Well, I'll be honest. I'll give you three different types of players
Yes.
that I really love. So I love Lance Franklin. He was my. Like, if we don't have favourites, but he was mine. I just big rig, running, bouncing, big goals, showman, just a jet. There are guys like Adam Goods and that who I just love watching. Surioli, freak.
Yeah.
And then there are other types that, I just can't. So you talked about the Brownlow earlier, right? And cool. But one of my favourite players to ever play AFL football, I just went, mate, you're unbelievable, was Nick Smith from the Sydney Swans. Yeah. So outside of Surioli, name one player that beat Nick Smith. I'll wait. Now, I don't think he ever polled a Brownlow vote, right? But he was a gun. And
Sensing a Sydney theme here.
Well,
right?
no. I'm just,
Were you a Sydney fan?
No, mate, not at all.
Who did you
right?
follow?
Well, Lance Franklin played for Hawthorn when he started, to be fair. So, that's not true either. But I just looked at Nick Smith, who was this back pocket defensive player, bravest Billio, never gobbed off at umpires or whatever. I bet all his teammates loved him.
Yeah.
Yeah?
That's a good one.
Well, thanks. Hang around.
Gets better. There's more.
But then, guys like, so say a guy like Matthew Pavlich was a freak.
Yep.
Yeah.
When I first started, Mark Rasciuto, he would play forward or midfield. I sat the bench in my very first game. He had 45 possessions and kicked 5 goals against Hawthorn. And it was like watching a grown adult play against the under-10s.
Yeah.
He was just freakishly
Yeah.
good. Matthew Scarlett.
Oh, yeah.
He was unbelievable. I love watching him play. So, lots of different players. And for different reasons, yeah?
Yep.
You umpired the 2010 grand final you were talking about.
Yep.
Can you maybe share a little bit around the process leading up? Because I'm sure you were nervous before. I don't know, maybe you weren't. Can you maybe share around the whole process of getting picked and then the lead up to the game?
Yeah, the toughest game to umpire as an AFL umpire who's in that, trying to aspire to that level, is preliminary final week.
Oof.
Yeah. Okay.
Because we don't win or lose, right? So we're just there to officiate the game and let the players play. Cool. But if you look at our season, that's our grand final, really. Because if you get that game right,
You're in.
and they want to pick you, they can. And if they do, that's kind of your victory, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're aspiring for that. So if that's as close as I can think of as where an umpire has a win or a loss.
So which prelim did you do that year?
That I did the Friday night. So was that Collingwood and Geelong?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dogs Saints was Saturday night. Yeah, I think. Or was it Dogs Saints that you did? Maybe.
No. So 2009, I did St Kilda versus the Western Bulldogs, and I sat the
I was
bench.
a sad boy that night, Ray.
Yes, we'll move on. I did the Friday night on. Yeah. So that was that one.
Big game.
And so you get through that game, and all 6 of those umpires are thinking, I'm going to get picked. Right? I've had a great year. That's what they're thinking.
Yeah.
I can be picked. And if you get through that game and you haven't destroyed it, there's no horrible controversy, or I haven't bounced like a bastard or whatever, you go on, if they want to pick me, they can.
Yep.
So I've umpired in 6 preliminary finals, and I've come off all of them going, if they want to pick me, they can.
Yep.
And I've been picked twice, 2010 and 2019, and I've sat the bench too many times, right?
Yeah.
And that's like the first loser as an AFL umpire. Like you, in a way, it's like, yeah, great, and you're part of the week and whatever, but you're not out there, right? It's like you're the emergency, right? So it's, but yeah, it's huge. And then so you umpire the prelim on the Friday night, and you don't find out until the Monday afternoon if you've been selected. So you don't sleep.
Yeah.
Like you just do not sleep. And everyone's asking you, how'd you go? Did it go, mate? I don't know yet. Like,
Yeah.
you know? Like,
Yeah.
But then I remember the first time I got picked for a grand final on the emergency. It was 2009. And Jeff Geeshan said to me, congratulations.
Oh.
And I'm like, you fucking beauty, right? And he goes, you've been selected as the emergency field umpire for the... And I'm like, fuck. What?
Why is that so funny?
Like, I am so glad this is a phone call, because you'd get flogged by a midget, right? It was the
What a terrible way to start.
No, because again, right? Like, imagine being in his shoes.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
That would be so hard, right? To have to ring a dude and go, well, it was the best I'd ever gone. I'd never sat the bench before. So, in a way, it is congratulations, but wasn't. That's not what I needed to hear then.
Yeah.
So that would be such a horrible position to be in. So if you put yourself in that person's shoes, far out, how do you make that call? And then the next year it was like, they just picked me up, they go, you're in. That's all they said.
Wow.
Oh, thank Christ. So once you get that call, it's just like, oh my God. Like, so you asked, were you nervous? That whole week's massive, but it was the least nervous I've probably ever been.
No way.
And it was like, no, today I get to go, I get to show you exactly how good I am at this.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. And I remember driving to the ground. It was a beautiful day, sunny, come over Punt Road Hill, MCG. It's proper Paul Kelly stuff, right? And I'm just like, this is going to be so good. But it's very different. You can't warm up on the ground like you normally do, and there's set times for things and whatever.
Who was the entertainment? Was that Meatloaf?
No. It was, God.
Was it Lionel Richie?
Lionel Richie was one of them, because I remember Brett Roseby just...
Loved him.
He put a performance on that equaled Lionel's, to be fair.
Lionel Richie, who else? Yeah.
And...
That's a big name.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Dancing on the ceiling. I do remember that. So, and then you come up out of the race, so we're down underneath, and you walk up the hill, and you can see them, like they're hanging off the back raft. You go, shit, there's a few in here today.
Yeah.
And then the game starts. I remember Rowan, our coach, saying, right, you just go into an end. Brett started it with a beautiful bounce. Sean Ryan, who, those two guys are just brilliant. Like, they carry me always, and I'm very grateful for those two fellows. Ray, you just go in an end and just take some time to find your feet and relax. Okay, cool. Anyway, bounce goes up. Darren Jolly runs forward to the ball, gets the ball, goal. Next thing, I'm standing in the middle of the MCG with a fucking hand grenade in my hands going, please go up straight. just fucking go up straight, right? And when you get that first one away and you flush it, and you're just like, right, fucking, I'm on here. And then the rest of it's just like, doosh, doosh. And then yet you remember every moment. Like, it's like you're so immersed in it.
And that was one of the great grand finals.
Yeah, I can tell you about things, being on the mark and seeing Lenny Hayes have a set shot and he's 50-odd out.
Yeah.
And no one thinking he'd kick it. I go, he'll kick this. And he munged it and still kicked it. Goddard's mark, I'm sort of in that end zone. You look forward, that's what you do, and you see him, you go, oh, this is yours, bro. And then he soars above and takes the mark. Maxwell touching balls on the line and all of the things, the Milne bounce.
Oh,
How far were you from that? Were
about
you on that
25
end?
metres away. So you know what I mean? Like, and
wow.
So there's just all those moments.
Did you think in that moment it was going to bounce his way? Or could you see
no, he could. And people go, oh, he should have got to it.
No, there's no way. There's no way.
Right?
But as I'm thinking, as the ball's coming down, are you thinking Saints are going to pinch this?
No, you're not thinking anything like that.
Yeah,
you're just keeping your distance and making sure you can see his head and you can see the ball. That's our job, right?
Fair enough.
And you're doing your job, mate, right?
Yeah, true.
You go and line up for a beer, I'll just do my job, right?
Yeah. Point taken, Ray. Point taken.
Yeah, but the siren sounds, and Nick Maxwell and Nick Rewald are here, and they go, Ray, what does that mean? And I go, well, if the scoreboard's right, we have to come back next week.
We get paid again.
Mate, well, yes. I was wrapped. they were filthy. Because, they're
Of course.
so invested.
Spent, yeah.
Yeah, so just incredible. Like, the whole thing was incredible. I remember coming off the ground, there's alcohol in baths. And
Wasn't there an issue with the rooms or
Oh,
something?
yeah.
So what happened? Because didn't the players then have to go over to your side?
No, well, they went to this. It's a big ground, the MCG. I don't know
Yeah,
if you noticed.
okay.
But yeah, they got shafted out, and there was something to do with all the sewerage and plumbing and everything had gone sideways. Anyway, I remember just coming into the rooms and our coaches coming in going, okay, look, this is unique. Well done. Excellent today. We'll put you out of your misery now. You're all in next week. So you've just got to consider your preliminary final done again and rehab and get ready. And, everyone, like everyone else, we had trips booked. We had,
of course,
silly Sundays that we were meant to go to and, all this sort of stuff. And we've got to go around again. I remember Brett being quite taken by it later that night. And I said, are you all right, mate? And he was like, it's not over. And I just try to explain to people what it's like to be an official in these things. And you just don't want to cock it up.
Yeah, of course.
So you're kind of waiting to exhale.
Yep. Yeah, it makes sense.
And yet we've got another week before we can put it to bed and go off on our, end of season trip. But I wish that I got picked every year, but I also wish that every umpire got the opportunity to go through that week because it's incredible. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's well said. Connor, can you grab a couple of those clips? I know we're probably running out of time and we've got to do golf box too. But I was literally I was going to ask about that whole, are you automatically in for the next week? So that's good that was all.
Oh, they just told us straight away. And thank Christ, because if they went away and, if someone had gone poorly, well, then they've got to reassess, don't they? But yeah, despite what probably people might think, we didn't go poorly.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, just quickly, on this? It came out in the media recently. Kane Corns came out and said he reckons some of the biggest names in the game at the moment get umpired differently.
Yeah, I think everyone's entitled to an opinion.
Yeah,
and Kane is. I respect Kane for being brave to hold a view and provide his perspective, and he will provide his rationale too. That's generally well thought out, but it's just like anything. It's just an opinion. If I put my umpire hat on and get all sensitive, I think you can word that differently, make your point, and be a little more respectful, actually. So, because you can hold a view and have a perspective, but it doesn't make it gospel. I can hold a counter view and it doesn't make mine any more right either, just by the way. Yeah? But I this whole idea about they get umpired differently, well, okay, show me the example. Maybe that was just an error. There was they'll show a clip to justify their position and you go, yeah, well, was the umpire marked as having made a mistake? Well, then therefore they're not umpired differently. An umpire made an error in the rule and how that's meant to be applied. But generally speaking, when Kane comes with these things, it's not something that he's seen one thing and made a comment on. He's usually got a reason for it. So again, everyone's entitled to a view. I'd love, more broadly, people to be more curious before they're judgmental and have some dialogue, and it can be off air, and actually get the information before they go hard on things, because all it does is bed down a lot of the mistruths, particularly around rules like holding the ball. People, high-power people in authoritative positions within this game, before you talk about Billy at, the dim sim line, they can't explain the rule accurately. And then it's apparently, we've got to make it easier for the umpires. Hang on, you don't know the rule. That doesn't mean I don't know it. Who are we trying to make it simpler for? I don't mind if we're making it simpler for people, if that's what we decide to do. But don't say it's for my benefit. I know the rule. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, well said. Well, I'm sure you've seen
You've
this
seen these
clip.
clips a billion
We
times,
love
right?
this. I think we've played this on our show on an uncut ones because we love it so much, and we just want to play for the viewers and listeners again.
Stand up, walk away. What this does for the Tigers to it.
Can you have a look at you need to calm down. Blood rule.
Thank you. Just relax. Okay, you don't talk. You don't talk to one another like that. Right? It's okay. Yeah, I understand. Thank you. That's why he's going off. Tell me when we're good to go, Shawnee.
Well, that's the best commentary for the night, I reckon.
That's my favourite part at the end there. But the reason we show that is, I mean, if people are unfamiliar with your work, if they're not AFL fans, that relationship with the players, it's so unique to hear an umpire communicate that way. And I remember watching that live and just pissing myself laughing. It was so good. So when you see that as an individual clip that gets played all the time, how do you feel? Do you just go, well, that's just another day at work? Or
So I'm only me, right?
Yeah.
I remember a coach. Oh, this is how old I am. They used to play the AFL reserves or the VFL on the ground at the MCG the morning of an AFL game, so like a curtain raiser. And I was walking across the ground one day, and my coach, my observer that day said, "Ray, you're a horrible Hayden Kennedy, and you're a worse Darren Goldspink, but you're a shit hot Ray Chamberlain." Right? And so he was trying to say to me, back yourself, mate, and just be you, right? Like, just be true to you. And I remember reflecting on that, thinking, if I try and be something I'm not, and I come up short and miss and don't get the opportunity to umpire, I'll never forgive myself. Mm-hmm. But if I am me and I give my best effort and I genuinely am just trying to do my job really, really well and I miss out, I can live with that. So something like that might happen, and some people will have a view on it strongly about this or the other. Fine, you're entitled to your view, that's cool. But I've got a mate who texts me, goes, "You're the same flog I knew when we were playing under 10s together, right? Like, that's just how you are." And like I know, we're not best mates, but I know Sean. I've umpired Sean in the VFL and when he was at Carlton, and you know, so it's not like it's the first time we've met.
Yeah,
right. People got this idea that you don't know that.
I just love that we don't talk to each
you're
other
at
like
bars,
that.
you're having beers, like you cafe, walking the kids, you know, whatever. Like we have relationships outside of the ground with people, and so. I'm generally my most accurate in my role and doing my best when I'm just being authentically me. And sometimes that will rub people the wrong way. Not everyone loves strawberry ice cream, mate. Yep. Okay, so I'm just going to be me and I'm just doing it the best I can.
Yeah,
love it.
Strawberry, your favourite flavour?
I'm more of a chocolate ice cream man, to be fair. Yeah.
Connor, could you bring in the golf box, please? Just while he does that, Ray, I'll quickly share a very quick anecdote from when Dos and I, we used to live together in Hawthorn. We had a little 2-bedroom apartment, very close proximity to each other. And
give that to Ray.
I don't know if you remember this, Dos, but one night, Dos is a very passionate Bulldogs fan.
Yes.
And Bulldogs were playing Port Adelaide, and he was in the lounge room watching the game, and I was in my room. I think I was actually editing, so I'm in my room, and I just heard this like, oh, and this let off this scream, and I just heard, "Fuck's sake, Ray!"
Right. I'm glad we've raised this.
So it's not umpire, it's Ray.
Yeah, no, real personal. So you mean it?
I don't remember the
Fuck off, Dos. What have you done, Dos?
There we
Fuck
go.
off.
Retaliated.
Yeah,
There you go.
I love it.
It's one of my favourites ever.
Let's go.
Do you want to explain the rules to Golf Box?
Well, they're good friends at Golf Box Australia. They've provided us with this fun game we like to play with our guests called What's in the Golf Box.
Okay.
Essentially, we've got a handful of questions. What would you call them?
Challenges?
Challenges or dares. Nothing
Okay.
too extravagant. But we'd love you to put your hand in there, pull one out, and if you do it or answer it, you might walk away with a nice little gift from the guys at Golf Box.
But before we do, What's in the Golf Box is brought to you by Golf Box, Australia's greatest golf superstore. If you need it, they have it, and it gets to you.
Fast and free. Head to golfbox.com.au to get all your golf.
There you go.
Golf gear. Ray, are you up for the challenge?
Let's have a look.
Let's have a look. Ray Chamberlain, what is in the golf box?
Is it like the same thing and you've written it 17
No,
times?
we're not
Is that
like
what it
that.
is?
We're not like that.
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay.
You can pick 2 out to prove it.
Yeah.
You can pick what?
I said you can pick,
Prove
2 out to prove it if you
No,
want.
right, yeah. Oh. Yes. Have you ever sent a text or pic to the wrong person Who and when? I'll share mine, but we had an umpire
Oh, no.
send a comment about the umpiring coach to who he thought was a team, another
no.
umpire, but to the coach.
Oh no!
that was.
Wasn't a group chat? Or?
No. I shouldn't have fucking bothered, like this sort of thing. The coach was like, I think you might have got this to the wrong bloke.
Oh, no.
So funny. No, I've done that a lot.
Yeah.
Because obviously if you're pickled, and like the worst one I've done was about my brother.
Oh,
And I
God, he's a knob.
and you know which one too. Go on, have a guess. I've only got two. But I went, God, this prick. Right. Thinking I sent it to the other brother, but I sent it to the brother in mind.
Oh.
Yeah, bad.
Well,
It's a
mate, Golf
common
Box
mistake.
are presenting you with a $250 voucher, mate. So
Hey, thank you,
enjoy
Golf
that.
Box. Greatly appreciate
Do you play golf at all? Right?
Yeah, poorly, but I love it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, we've actually got another golf pack to give to you today from our good friends at Fleet Plan Hire, who are our naming rights sponsor. So they put together a nice little golf pack for you. So you're going to go home with a glove, a towel, some socks, tees, balls, the lot.
And then you're $250 at Golf Box.
We're on like Donkey Kong. Thank you very much. That's very generous. Unnecessary, but thank you to Golf Box. Thank you to all the sponsors.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Without this
They
wouldn't be
keep
possible.
our show alive, mate.
That's right.
So we are where we are because of them. But Ray, mate, it's been an absolute blast. We've loved having you on. It's great to finally make it happen.
Yep.
I mean, we've loved it, and we appreciate you being so open and generous with your time.
Thanks for having me, boys.